If we could start the neighborhood subcommittee meeting. Have the clerk call the roll, please.
Chairman Leahy,
Here.
Council Laurie,
Here.
Council Mercia.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. We're here tonight for the neighborhood subcommittee meeting, discussion regarding the amending of Chapter 104 of City Ordinance to permit keeping of farm animals and fowl for personal use. I'd like to start off the meeting with questions or comments from the committee members first. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We came in tonight, there's 3 letters here from individuals, and I'd like to first make a motion we make these part of the record.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past couple of weeks, and I really don't have a position on this one way or the other, I've talked to all the parties, but I have gone on and looked at some of the questions really around the country, and they do change from agricultural areas to city. And we haven't had time. The city solicitor now has handed us an ordinance and a policy for regulations in urban agriculture. So if I could, just some of the questions I have, if they're in the regulations or the ordinances. First of all, if we do pass an ordinance, number of birds, would there be an ordinance on the number of birds that would be allowed?
We do have a number, and that was adopted just from another community. I would suggest that the draft ordinance is really just meant as a means of having a structure and a format to take a look at as you go through the issue, and that what I was viewing tonight's meeting geared towards is really sort of the discussion and being given an opportunity to listen to what people have to say about the issue, both pro and con, and then go back and retool and take what we've heard tonight and reformat it. So this is really just a very rough draft that was just meant for limited purposes for this evening.
Some of the questions I came up with after the past really couple of days, and one would be the number of birds. If we're going to let them run free or have coops, if there's going to be a fee. In some cities, they've actually required the chickens be registered with the Department of Agriculture in that state. One of the questions I have is, many of the people who may want chickens, this isn't a farm community, have no formal training whatsoever. And we see this with the dog ordinances, and we hear it all the time. It's not the dog, it's the owner. And be that we live in a city, the residencies are close. You have noise, you have smell, you have health, cleanliness of the coops, and things like that. Again, they'll be using them for possible food. Would veterinarian care be required? And one of the real issues I have is, we do have the officers here tonight, is what happens if we happen to take the chickens. We get a call from a complaint, they go out, and now they have to confiscate the chickens. What do we do with them? And these are just some of the questions I have, and hopefully we'll get these answered as we go along, and maybe look at them in this light. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is one of those issues where I've heard pro, people being for the having chickens, and against. It's overwhelming how there's support for it, and people are very vocal on this particular subject. So no matter what down the road we choose, there will be those that'll be happy about it and those that'll be angry. I think this evening, as our chairman would probably say, this is for information purposes. I'm not willing tonight to say one way or another that I support this ordinance. I have just been presented it on this table this evening, so I don't know what it says. I know that there was a very big meeting with the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group last night. I'm sorry I did not attend, so I would be willing to listen to what went on there. I know that I haven't heard from the Board of Health, I haven't heard from the Health Department, I haven't heard from the Animal Advisory Committee. All these entities and committees need to weigh in as to me to formulate an opinion, because once it's there, I want to be sure that I support whatever there is. I hear people saying I don't want hens because there'll be roosters and they'll be waking me up at 5 in the morning. And you don't need a rooster to have a hen lay an egg. You need only the rooster to fertilize that egg. And I'm not a farmer, so I really don't know. But then I think there are many questions. Do these chickens need to be confined to a coop? Because if they have a coop and they're still allowed to roam in the backyard in a certain area, what if a neighbor's cat gets in there and kills these chickens? Do we now have a lawsuit against the family that owns the cat? So, I mean, I have a rascal boy cat, and I wouldn't want him to go in somebody's chicken coop and start killing those chickens. There's many thoughts on what's going on here, but I would like to listen to what people have to say. I'm sure that people that have come up before the council, and Councilor Mendonça made the motion, I'm sure these people are wonderful people that would truly take good care of the chickens that they have. But I'm thinking about if a hen lays an egg a day and we're allowed to have, let's say, even 2 hens, that would be 7 eggs per hen a week. That would be 14 eggs a week combined with the... I don't know how many people can go through 14 eggs a week. That's quite a lot. Are they going to now then be selling them? So, and then how long can a hen keep producing eggs after they're no longer serviceable? What do these people do with this? Do they say we don't want to, get rid of this hen, but we want to now eat it? Are we then going to see it strung up upside down to have the blood dripping in the dirt? I don't know. I don't want to see that. I know one time, and I'm not going to say where this was, I knocked on a person's door and asked if I could put a sign in the yard, and they said, sure, go right ahead. And when I went through the grass and to the fence, I saw chicken gizzards out in the sun with a ton of flies all around, and they were going to eat this later on. I don't know why, but, I mean, I don't want to see this, but if we can have laws or an ordinance, I mean, I have to listen to what everybody has to say. I know there's pros and cons, and I can give you a good argument on either side. And being a Libra, I like to balance the scale and be fair, but I can't make a determination until I hear from the majority rules, and that's my opinion. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Before we hear from the public, did any of the other councilors want to make a, okay. So if we could hear from the public, if you could limit your comments to 5 minutes, we could start. Thank you. I'm sorry, just probably state your name and address for the record, Mr. Clerk.
Edward Caulfield, 589 Princeton Boulevard, Lowell, Mass. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, my former colleagues in government, I'm here to address this important issue. I'm just going to give you a brief history of the city of Lowell. Lowell has a land area of 14.5 square miles. Lowell has 8 distinct neighborhoods: the Acre, Back Central, Belvedere, Highlands, Pawtuckaville, and South Lowell. According to the 2010 census, there were 106,519 people residing in this city. The population density, listen to this very closely, 7,842 people per square mile. There were 41,431 housing units at an average density of 2,865 per square mile. I particularly don't care what Los Angeles is doing, Seattle, Washington, Somerville, or any other city in this country. I do care about this city. And to amend this ordinance, I think, is absolutely ludicrous. It's wrong. Mr. Chairman, I bought a dozen of organic eggs at Market Basket. Authentic organic eggs, $3.69 a dozen. Anyone who wants organic eggs can simply go to Hannaford's, Stop and Shop, or Market Basket. They're all located in the general area. It equates to about 30 cents an egg. All right, I had to get that presented to you. And I do have some questions or comments. I won't take up too much time because I know there's a lot of people who want to speak. One, what will happen, what will the chickens produce besides eggs? Rodents, possums, raccoons, coyotes, foxes, and skunks. And Council Rita Mercier brought up the issue, what if a cat gets in someone's yard? How about the dogs that gets in someone's yard? You're going to be inundated with phone calls, and the health department only has 4 health inspectors. 4. They cannot do the job required for a city of 106,000 people now. Who will be responsible for the removal of the chicken manure? Will it be the city, waste management, the owner of the chickens? You know what's going to happen there, don't you? The city of Lowell has a limited work staff, I indicated, of 5 health inspectors. Many of them are working full-time, inspecting supermarkets, etc. They don't have time to do this. There was a dream, or could I say a nightmare, of a handful of people. And let me tell you, I'm out and about in this city constantly, whether it's in Market Basket, golf tournaments, the gas stations, or wherever. Take it for what it's worth. The response about this amendment to this ordinance is absolutely unbelievable. People are absolutely thoroughly mad about it. And you got to let that's going to come out in November if this passes. Don't embarrass the city and the thousands of people who are not in favor of this motion. In closing, is the downtown a neighborhood, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, yes.
Well, yes, now.
It is, isn't it? This subcommittee would spend more valuable time addressing the East Merrimack Street Bridge that has been delayed for another 3 months. Businesses are hurting immensely because of it. That's what this subcommittee should be doing, addressing that issue and not chickens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deb Forgione. Do I have 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I may
Get
need them.
everybody through.
Okay, I'm going to really speak tonight, 2 separate. One, I am the chairman of the Pawtuckaville Citizen Council, and I am going to speak. And then I'm going to speak personally. Okay, as the chairman of the Pawtuckaville Citizens Council, I have contacted and spoke to many of our members, and the one thing I asked every single person that called me, emailed me, or I called, the thing we can agree on is enforcement. Now, I also belong to the citywide neighborhood council, and we have attended monthly subcommittee meetings almost every month this year, and every counselor in this room goes to those meetings. The last couple of meetings, when we were talking about enforcement, which seems to be the issue, almost every issue that we're talking about. Now, I thought we were working towards better enforcement, such as having inspectors work at night, be on call for the weekends. I heard that at the last couple of meetings, and we were like, okay, that's going to be great, because right now, you can violate zoning, health, conservation after 5 o'clock and on the weekends, and everybody knows it. So what we had all been talking about, I thought, was working towards more inspectors, having someone on call, adding more inspectors. As neighborhood group leaders, we're all feeling really good about the fact that we were coming every month, 9 of us, talking about enforcement. And then when we saw this new ordinance, which is going to require more inspectors, it felt like then were people listening? Were you at those safety subcommittee meetings where we were talking about we needed more help with what we already had? But instead, what we saw was that you're taking an ordinance that I personally enjoy. You want to take it away. You want to take away an ordinance that we already have and change it because it seems to appeal to some people's lifestyle or hobby. It's not a necessity. It's not that they have to be done. It's not that it's needed. If it was, I'd be the first person up here saying, help them. But it isn't. It's a hobby and it's a lifestyle. That's the Pawtuckaville citizen part of it. It's all the members agree enforcement is important. Now, on the second part, I felt that sending this directly to the law department without a stop and talk to anybody that lives here. No resident, no subcommittee, no open discussion. We're talking about chickens, but it's more than that. You're talking horses and goats and pigs, donkeys, farm animals, I don't know. But you're talking about, horses don't lay eggs, chickens lay eggs, but somehow you're gonna take away the ordinance for all of them without a discussion. And you're gonna have an ordinance that you're going to allow us to speak on some night at City Council, and we're going to have an hour and a half to talk about it. The work needs to be done now. So what I'm asking you to do is take it out of the law department and put it back where it should be. Meetings, talking, discussions. We're talking about a lot of types of animals. I personally love horses. I would love to see somebody that has 3 acres or 8 acres have those horses. But it's not about me. It's about the fact that you're talking about an ordinance you're going to change about the variety of different animals, and and it's already in the law department. She's already working on it. You haven't heard from anybody. We have somebody here that's grew up with chickens in Lowell. We have somebody here that wants to talk about what it's like. We have people that can come to you and tell you how bad it may be and then make a really good ordinance, but we weren't allowed to do that because it went right to the law department. And that's my personal feeling, that I think that you should have had the people talk about it, have a discussion, have dialogue, and we didn't get the chance to do it. And now it's sitting in the law department, and someday it's gonna come up, we're gonna be down here at 7 o'clock, and we'll have an hour and a half to talk about it, and I think that's unfair. And one more, do I have 1 more minute? Sure. Okay. I live near the forest, and I can tell you this, I'm not gonna have the chickens, but my neighbor might. But who's gonna be in my yard are foxes and coyotes and fisher cats, because that's where the food is. That's what happens when you live in your butt a forest. And that's what I wanted to have to say, and that's how I feel. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to add that whether this went to neighborhood subcommittee first or law department, this is, my first time on the council. I didn't think that, I thought it could have gone either way. There was certainly not going to be presented to anybody at the last minute. There was going to be discussion about this. So I just want to make that clear that there would have been discussion about this. And I just want, again, it could have gone either way, but there was going to be plenty of discussion with this. And tonight is information. We're going to have another meeting, and I'll just let the city solicitor weigh in.
The only thing I would add is that Deb has sat down, but I agree with the points. And in fact, Councilman Donser and I were in touch with the neighborhood groups. And in lieu of this, we were originally planning on having a meeting with the neighborhood groups for that exact purpose, to get input. And instead we're doing it this way, which is fine as well. But that, as you were saying, that input would have certainly been part of the process and will be part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
I won't take 5 minutes.
No,
Just for the record. My name is Tay Dixon-Blaine. I'm from the Lower Highlands Neighborhood Group, and our group first learned about the backyard chickens in January when Rachel Chandler came and presented at our meeting. Following the schedule of this meeting, I also requested comments from members of our neighborhood group on keeping of backyard chickens, and I received 15 responses, which is actually pretty good for the Lower Highlands. The responses were pretty evenly split between 8 in favor of keeping 6 hens and 7 were against. Those in favor indicated their desire to produce food for their families, and those against had concerns that have been noted about noise, pests, and odors, and the ability of the city to inspect the properties keeping chickens. From this informal poll of the Lower Highlands, I think there's a lot of differing opinions on the issue. The Lower Highlands, as you all know, is a lower income neighborhood. We have a lot of struggles with food security, access to healthy foods, and education about healthy food choices, so this is something we take very seriously. I think a lot of people have to agree that keeping larger livestock in the city is probably not a good idea, but many people do believe that there is a place for urban agriculture in Lowell. I don't think that this issue, and this has been stated also, that I don't think this issue can be vetted in an hour-long subcommittee meeting. There's a lot of information out there about not only chickens, but bees, backyard gardens, pests, all sorts of things that need to be considered when you're developing an ordinance for private food production. Interestingly, about a week ago, I received an email from the city of Boston about an urban agricultural working group that they have had working for the last, I think, 2.5 years when this issue came up in their city. And they meet regularly, they consider all these issues, they work with different members of the community, they bring in experts on these issues, and they meet and bring forward information to their city council to consider about ordinances and how best to address this issue within their city limits. So I think this is something that the city of Lowell might also want to consider doing. Thank you.
Councilor Mercia.
So I would say that you're in favor of the ordinance with restrictions and rules?
I would have to say that, as the neighborhood group, it was split down the middle. And when Rachel came to our meeting, people were pretty non-committal about it. They were like, okay. It didn't seem like it was one way or the other, but I think one of the issues is that I think a lot of people feel like they don't have enough information, and to just vote on an ordinance without being educated about it, I think is a mistake. So, I think this isn't just a 1-hour issue or even, a subcommittee issue. I think it's
Well,
something
this
that
isn't
is
going to be a 1-hour issue.
Yeah.
This is going to be the start of,
Right, which is why I think that, I think not only do we have to deal with this issue of chickens, because that's something that's right ahead of us, but there are larger issues here. Food security in Lowell, and there's a food security committee in Lowell that has been working for a number of years to address issues like this and how to bring healthy foods to neighborhoods that don't necessarily have a lot of access to it. So I think this is something that may need a larger discussion.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In lieu of some of the questions I had, in lieu of some of the questions I'm hearing from some of the speakers, do we have someone from the Health Department here? I think.
Yes, Joanne Keegan.
Joanne Keegan, 67 Rayner Street. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I'm just here this evening to ask that the Board of Health be allowed to weigh in at some point on the public health implications of introducing farm animals into the city. This issue has not come before the board, and so the board has not discussed it as a formal issue, but certainly we would like to weigh in on the public health implications at some point. If I could request that, and we're not here to say we're for or against chickens. We haven't discussed it, but there certainly are some public health implications, and would like to at some point weigh in on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Solicitor.
To that point, many of the communities do have separate regulations that are promulgated by the Board of Health, and the way that they are set up is that the ordinances passed by the city or town, or passed by the city rather, will also work in conjunction with the Board of Health regulations. So you have your baseline ordinance that the council may pass, and then additional regulations, which presumably would be stricter, that are then promulgated by a Board of Health and enforced by our sanitary code officers and things of that nature.
Thank you. And if I could, before I finish, if we could hear from the Animal Control Officer again, due to some of the questions I have and I'm hearing, if you would like to make any statement at this point.
As far as the whole issue, and I made this clear last night, the Animal Control Division is not pro or con. We are here simply for the enforcement part of it. That if it's something which we will have to deal with, because we will, just like we have to with all other animal issues. The ordinances have to be in place so that it gives us the power to make it right for both the people that own the animals and also the people that do not want the animals.
I have a couple of questions. As I said, one city did require every chicken to be registered with the Department of Agriculture. Some are registered with the cities, I believe, and then some have veterinarian care. Do you have any questions or any response to that?
That is a state law. All chickens, hens, roosters have to be registered with the Department of Agriculture. Before any of the poultry are bought, they have to come with a certification that has already cleared and passed Department of Agriculture's testing. That is the same as if you were to raise chickens and you want to sell them or give them away. Once again, it has to come with the correct paperwork. So everything has to be cleared with correct paperwork through the Department of Agriculture.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, we'll go back to anybody from the public. Excuse me, just right after Council Laurie, and then we'll go right back to public. Sure, yep.
Could you just run us through that? Like, are there costs involved with that, or what would be the time? How would that work? In other words, if I went and got 6 chickens, how would I go about doing that, and what would be the costs and the time involved for me?
If you went out to purchase as many chickens as you wanted, say you wanted to go out and purchase 6 chickens, wherever you purchase them has to show a certificate for every single chicken. It's not that you get it and then you get a certificate. When you purchase the chicken is when you get a certificate. Otherwise, it is illegal. If you choose to then breed chickens, there's regulations that go with eggs if you want to get into sale of eggs, and there's regulations that go with the sale of chickens. If you choose to want to breed chickens and continue from there, the state then has the testing, which most of that state testing is actually done free of charge for the poultry. If you're a small-time breeder, if you're an actual breeder of 4,000 chickens in an agricultural area, obviously that's not free. But that's getting into if you're actually going to breed chickens. You want to go out, you want to start, you want to have 6 chickens. There is no cost to you as far as getting the certificate. Whatever it is you pay for the chicken is your cost, and that I wouldn't know what chickens are going for at this time.
This can be like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Who gets the certificate then? The person I buy them from, someone has to get the certificate to begin with, right?
Correct. Say you go to an agway.
Okay.
You walk into an agway or pet feed store, and there is a box of all these chickens. For every chicken that's in that box, there is a certificate. Normally they have bands on their legs, or I'm not even sure if they tattoo them at that young of age. Normally it's a band. When you buy that chicken, you are given that certificate. So when Agway buys them, they're given those certificates. They have to in order to sell the chickens.
Okay. All right, but for the individual owner, then there would be no cost, and there's no time or anything. You don't have to wait for any certificate. You just get the certificate when you get your chicken, and that's it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct, as far as when you buy that. Again, and then that makes, then what cities can do, and most do, and they do that purposely so Department of Agriculture and the city can regulate. Cities can send out, it's the same thing as a census, what you own for animals. And that gets on cost.
And so what would be required from you if let's say that 10 people in the city ended up getting the chickens and they each got 6? What would you be doing, and when would you do that? Would you check on the chickens once a year, or, how would that go?
Correct. Chickens being under agriculture, they're checked once a year by animal inspectors, which all of your animal control officers are animal inspectors. When we show up, we need to see that there is a certificate for every single chicken, and it must match the chicken. Does not matter if you had that chicken 10 years, it's only one certificate unless there was some type of outbreak or a different chicken bought on your property. If we as animal control officers pick up a stray chicken, it has to be quarantined and it has to be retested. We cannot just bring it back to your property. That, of course, then would be at your cost if there was something more to it, because that's then when chickens can infect other chickens. So that does not happen. We come to your property, you show us a certificate for the chicken. Every year we inspect that. We look for the same things that we do for all animals, that they're obviously, they have food, they have medical care, and they have shelter.
Some of the, just one or two more questions, I think. Some of the other communities that have ordinances that allow for chickens, I think Arlington is the one that comes to mind, and Arlington also seems to be the one that other communities have used as a model, but they have a certain requirement for open space, I think. And it was either Arlington or someplace else where I read that the one of the tests has to be that if you walk the perimeter of the property, you're not supposed to be able to smell the chickens or hear the chickens, or I think even see the chickens. They should just be in the backyard and kind of be invisible to anybody that's not on the property. Is that, so what would you do about that? And is that a good idea, or what do you think about that?
Well, that would be, again, something that you'd have to go through all your city ordinances for. If you allow people to have chickens on any size lot you wanted in any area of the city you wanted, that's all through your city ordinance. That's not state law, and that's not animal control to decide that. That's ordinances for the city to decide that. As far as how you have it set up, that goes back to the same health issues that you have with every animal. Animal control, they are to obviously be cared for, kept clean, kept sheltered. Health issues, if you start to have smells, you know, that's something that goes through health, as is, you know, same as with people's trash.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Sir.
Hi, my name is Sandra McNamara. I'm the president of Centerville Neighborhood Action Group and also the vice president of CNC, and I'm going to speak in favor of the Centerville neighborhood and then myself. I did have a meeting last night. Rachel came and spoke very well. At the meeting, we had 2 people there that was in favor, and not in favor of having them, but agreed either way. The majority of the people at the meeting agreed against. I personally had a question. I'm not a person for eggs, but I am a person for chicken. So could I purchase them and slaughter them? Was a question I had. Or if my neighbor decides to do the chickens, can I slaughter the one that jumps over my fence? That was my questions. Other than that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Can we just run through a couple people?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Judge, and I represent the Highlands Neighborhood Association, and I'm also a resident of the city of Lowell, and I live at 28 Foss Street. And I think one of the concerns as a neighborhood leader is that we just don't truly have enough information, and especially health information on the subject. I know that I took an email survey over the past couple weeks from the residents in the Highlands, and out of 175 people, I ended up with about 50 responses. 5 were in favor, and 35 were against. And most of the concerns were health issues, sanitary issues, sanitary and health issues, noise issues. So there again, I think before anything is done by this committee or the city council, they really need to do far more research than what has already been said. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jane Pappas. I live at 80 Willard Street. I grew up at 251 Methuen Street up on Christian Hill. 259 Methuen Street was a chicken farm. Now, many times we had animals in our yard. Our cats were well fed. They managed to dig their way in. I don't care what Mr. Thissell did. He worked at it. It didn't matter. But we weren't giving up our cats for their chickens. So it was really bad. The kids used to come over. We always played in my yard. And when the wind blew a certain way, we went in the house because it really wasn't the most pleasant smell in the world. Those chickens had to be, and I know the eggs were always fresh. I know the chickens were fine, and I know they killed them and hung them upside down on the clotheslines, and I remember that as perfectly as anything. But I really don't think the city is a place for the chickens. I think the country is a place, fine, but not city, because people will take advantage. They'll have a little plot of land, and they'll decide they want chickens. You know what? You can't have this. We just cleaned up the river. Let's keep the rest of the city clean. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street, Lowell, and I'm the current president of the Citywide Neighborhood Council. The first time I heard the word chicken and Lowell in the same sentence was Monday, April 29th, and I was printing out the Lowell City agenda for April 30th. And the words that came to my mind are the same exact words I have heard several times over the last couple of weeks. Are you kidding? And that is the majority of people I've spoken to. 2 people have said, I really don't care. Everyone else has said, are you kidding? And they ask you to repeat it. People do not believe it. They think it's a joke. This is a city. We are not a town. We are not a farmland. That's why we have Dracut, Tingsboro, Groton, Chelmsford, Westford. That's why God sent them to us. We are a city, 4th largest in the state, and we like the way it is. We are not Somerville. We do not want to be Somerville. The number one question you should be asking is, why did Lowell stop it? We had chickens when I was a child, like Jane said when she was younger. It was stopped for health reasons, mainly rats. And you're not going to tell me that rats do not carry disease. We are looking at chickens plus farm animals. I printed off from the Center for Disease Control site because they really do not think that having live poultry near children and elderly is a good idea. To quote them on their site, you can look it up, if you have free roaming live poultry, assume where they live and roam is contaminated. Why would you want to bring that into our neighborhood? So you know they are smelly, you know they're noisy, you know they attract other animals like rats, raccoons, mice, and God knows what else, not to mention the fact that they wake up early every morning. They do not know what a Saturday or Sunday morning sleep in. So do you really think this is good for our neighborhoods? A chicken coop has a negative impact on property values. For anyone wanting to purchase a home in a town with a chicken coop on the adjoining property, especially where it can be viewed, where it can be heard, and where it can be smelled on a daily basis. What do you think this will do for house sales? Developers will just love it. So, do we add another job onto our already overburdened health inspectors, or do we hire a new chicken inspector? We have medical marijuana about to hit our plate with their regulations. Now you want to add chickens and farm animals with sanitary and health issues? You already have animal control violations all over the city now. You've had to change a part-time person to a full-time animal control person due to the overload and the overtime. We have dogs without licenses. You think you're gonna control chickens without their registration with the Department of Agriculture? Please just take a breath. Count to 10 and seriously think, do you really want to waste all this time, energy, and money to turn this city upside down? This is not a cute hobby. This is a disaster waiting to happen. We have our hands full now trying to control animals. We have illegal animals now. I hope to God you see what an expensive, very expensive, and really bad problem this is going to be. I do not live in Somerville, Seattle, or any other of these chicken lands because I'm a city girl. I live in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts. I am Lowell born, Lowell bred, someday Lowell dead, and I've got the plot to Plant Man. Lowell is a fine city. We have enough on our plate right now. This is an expensive, troublesome adventure. We do not need it. And as I said in the beginning, the many people, and I've spoken to many, do not believe this is serious and think it is a joke. Their comment is, "Are you kidding me?" Please be careful. Your decision on this matter will affect all of us, much more than you think. I thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you. Councilor Laurie, and then we'll go right back to public.
Just very quickly, just from questions, I'd like to make at least 3 quick motions. One, that we ask for the health department for a report on possible disease with individuals and with chickens. This city has 50%, I believe, single-family homes, 50% apartments. And I know the people who want chickens may be in a single-family home, but what do we do when we have a 3 or 4 family? How many chickens are going to be in that property? And a lot of these buildings are in neighborhoods that are very congested. And that's one motion I'd like to make if we get a report from the health department for the full council on possible disease of the individuals in the area and chickens.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Second. Roll call?
Chairman Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
3 yeas.
I'd like to make another motion. If we could get a report from the assessor's office, do these things change the evaluation of a home in a neighborhood? I don't know if they do or they don't, but I think these are questions for the full council as we go forward. If the assessor's office has information or can get that information, if it's going to affect the evaluation of the neighbor's property.
Second.
Second. Roll call?
Chairman Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
3 yeas.
And finally, one more quick one if I can. I'd like a report from the animal control officer. We know now that the chickens have to be registered with the state, but what about the owners themselves? I'm looking out, and many of the owners here who want chickens are probably know how to handle them, but once you open this ordinance up, you're going to open up to the 106,000 people in this city. And I don't want to see what happens to, if people buy it on a whim, and what happens from that point on. So I'd like to report from the animal control officer. Do the owners of these chickens have to be licensed because they are a food product?
Okay.
I'd like to add into the Animal Advisory Board as well. We haven't heard anything from them, and we have created an Animal Advisory Board as well, and I don't see anybody here, and I'm curious to...
Your name, yeah.
Yes.
If I may, I'd be from the Animal Advisory Board. The only reason we have no comment on it is because this came up awful quick before we've had a meeting.
Right, so I'd like to include the board as well.
Yeah. I think you call the meetings now, right, Officer Woods? You do, okay, I'm on the board.
Right.
All right.
So when you say animal control with the Animal Advisory Board
We'll
as
meet on
well.
that, too.
So
Okay.
second on that motion, yes.
Thank you.
Roll call?
Chairman Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Laurie.
Yes.
Counsel Martin. Counsel Mercia, excuse me.
If I said yes to Martin, yes.
Okay,
3
thank you.
yeas.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, I promise I won't take 5
No,
minutes,
it's
because I think
okay.
mostly what has to be said has been said. My name is Carol McCarthy. I live at 64 Blossom Street in Lowell. I'm also a member of the CNC, and I co-chair the Sacred Heart Neighborhood Improvement Group. From some of the neighbors that I have asked, some are for, some are against, some remember that when they were children, they had them too, and they wondered the same thing. Well, gee, what happened? Why did the city stop it? I think tonight we're putting the cart before the horse. There are so many unanswered questions, and we're standing here tonight talking chickens. What's going to happen 6 months from now, a year from now? We're going to come in here saying, oh, I want ducks now, I want horses now, I want all the farm animals now, or are you going to be segregated and prejudiced against me because I don't want chickens, but I want another farm animal? My concern is going to be, we all have illegal dog owners out there who do not register their dogs. We know who they are, you know who they are, but the city does not aggressively go after them saying, your pet is unregistered, unless we happen to call animal control because we have a problem with them. Then we can only reach animal control 5 days a week during the working hours. Nighttime hours, they don't exist. We can call the police department and say we have a problem, but we have to wait till the morning. Weekends, they're not on call unless we have to call them in, and they have to be called in to be paid overtime. My wondering is if you even think of enforcing this, how close to another resident's property can you have this coop in that? I say let them have over an acre of land and don't be anywhere near within 15 feet of our property. We should not even be able to see the coop because of the value of my home would be depreciated because my neighbor has chickens in it. Then what are you going to do to help me sell my house? I thought in the beginning that our city of Lowell was moving forward, making better progresses, making our city a better place to be. I think with allowing this, we're taking a step backwards. If they want them, go to the farms, go to the towns. I love horses, I love animals. If I wanted them, I would move out to the country where I could have them and have them legally and allow them to run. You're looking now and you're saying now that maybe these chickens need to be in a little coop and a little hatch. So you're confining the space they need to run in. I like to challenge them and say, I'll give you a 2x4 space and let's see how long you can survive there and you can stand there without going stir crazy. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott, and then we'll get right back to public speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could not agree more with the previous speaker. This is a step back, in my opinion. On the surface, maybe it sounds like a pretty good idea. Want to raise some chickens? You buy them as little chicks. But in reality, it is a problem. It's like anything else. It will bring problems. Unwarranted chickens, abandoned chickens, they're going to end up at the shelter. We've already heard the process of it has to be quarantined, and that's going to end up costing us. It's going to cost the taxpayers. Disease, nuisance. How about the waste disposal? Chickens poop. Where's that going? Molting, mice, lice, sanitation issues, salmonella. How about sick birds? What happens when they get sick? We are a very tight, densely populated city. This is not the place to allow chicken coops. Enforcement. This ordinance, we're going to put this into a zoning ordinance. That means we're going to have zoning enforcement. There's commercial farming allowed, commercial greenhouses. We already have we had one problem with a greenhouse that's still standing. And look at how long it took for the city to do some enforcement on it. So when you start to think about all these issues and you start looking at all of the problems, why do we want to even pursue this? Getting more information, that's fine. But how about a little common sense? That's what I think that we need. We don't have the resources, we don't have the staff, and we don't have the ability, nor should we be worrying about regulating chickens. What are people gonna do on the weekends when there's chickens running around? We're gonna have our police officers chasing chickens? We're gonna have our inspectors chasing chickens? Sometimes they have to chase dogs. So I think that it is a step backwards. I think that we have made so much progress in this city on so many fronts, and we have to be vigilant on those fronts. We have to be vigilant on drugs and prostitution. Those are the issues that our neighborhood leaders, who are first-line responders to people in the community, that's what they hear. That's what they bring to the Public Safety Subcommittee on a monthly basis. And those are the issues that we need to put our resources towards. So maybe it appears to be a good idea, and it might make some sense in some other communities. I wholeheartedly do not believe this is a good idea for the city of Lowell. I don't think, and I would suggest that this subcommittee vote to recommend to the council not to proceed any further with having the city solicitor's office continue to draft this ordinance. It makes no sense. It shouldn't go any further. We should focus our time and attention on other issues and not a chicken ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bob Rafferty. I live at 113 Walker Street in Lowell. Born and bred in the acre, and went on to become a farmer, which is pretty bizarre considering I went through the Bartlett School and I'm an acre boy. But the one exposure that I did have was my third grade teacher, Mrs. Richardson, who's from Dracut, who owned a farm, and that had a great impact on me. I think that this is a huge social issue as well. To have children be able to be exposed to where their food source comes from within our community opens up new food opportunities. As I've grown on my property in the acre, I've worked with UTEC as a volunteer and had children actually walk up and say, that's broccoli. Yeah. Well, it's growing as a plant. Yeah. Well, where did you think that it came from? The store. So we've lost that connection to food with our children and with people in general. And it used to be here. For over a century in Lowell, we had chickens. My great-grandfather was a dairy farmer on the same property on Walker Street in Lowell. This is how our city was built. And it was also considered a civil duty at one point during war times to keep 2 chickens for every person in your family. I understand the concerns that people have brought forward. People are afraid. People are always afraid of what they don't understand. But when you examine the facts in this case, and you begin to understand it, there isn't so much of a need for concern. Turtles are legal in Lowell. Reptiles are legal in Lowell. They are the highest carrier of salmonella out of any animal out there. The Center for Disease Control reported 374 cases of salmonella last year in conjunction with turtles. That dwarfs the amount of cases of salmonella in regards to chickens. As a matter of odor, if your coop is smelling, you're not taking care of your birds correctly. That smell alone can lead to your birds having a respiratory infection. So then you're really not being a good caretaker for your pets. So there shouldn't be an odor involved. As far as the poop, and I think that's a big issue, is poop. I've heard a lot of poop today. A 40-pound dog on a daily basis lets go 3/4 of a pound of poop. 10 chickens, let's go 0.6 pounds of poop in a day. And as far as what that does to waste management, I know that all my table scraps I save in a bucket. No meat, but all of my vegetable table scraps get fed to my chickens in Westford. They use it as food. I take that poop and I compost it, and I use it for fertilizer for my garden. So that's actually, if people are following these practices, is going to reduce the amount of waste that are coming from these. Because you're also not going to have that vegetable waste going into people's trash, and the trash management people aren't going to have to deal with that. There are a lot of benefits to this. And I think that people are having a knee-jerk reaction. They're thinking, oh, there's going to be disease. There's going to be animals. I live in the acre. Just by growing vegetables and growing them well, I've had a deer in my property. I took a picture of it. It was on the front page of the Lowell Sun, the deer roaming down Broadway. I've had wild turkeys. I have raccoons. I deal with these, and there are no chickens on my property in Lowell. So these things exist. Wherever you have any animal in Lowell, you're going to draw in other animals. If you have dogs and you're feeding them outside, you're going to draw in rodents. These animals are present. The mere addition of a chicken isn't going to increase or reduce this. As long as people maintain their coops correctly and the birds are kept in a coop and a fenced-in scratch yard, then you're not going to have the problems that we're talking about here today. And a fenced-in scratch yard can just be a chain link dog run. And many people use that, and there are no problems in Somerville. And Mr. Caulfield, you talked about how densely populated we are. Somerville is the 17th most densely populated city in the United States, and they're doing this. They have urban chickens, and there aren't problems. You don't see problems in their newspaper regarding this.
Well, we've been so polite to you.
We-
We've been so polite, so quiet.
So I think that what we're seeing here is people who generally do have concern, and I understand those concerns. I understand the concern about property value, but the 10 highest property valued communities in America all have urban chickens as well. So I think we really need to get away from the fear reaction. I think we need to get away from, just like you think is common sense, but is really just more of a reaction without fact behind it, and get back to facts and look at this factually and look at the positives that can come from this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think for tonight, and we're going to certainly schedule another meeting, we want to keep our comments, for information purposes. Obviously, there's people that feel strongly on one way or the other. I'm sorry, we're going to have to end the meeting tonight, but we'll certainly schedule another one. An hour certainly isn't enough time, but it is tough to get down here at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I appreciate everybody coming. I appreciate the speakers that got up to speak so far, and we will schedule another meeting as soon as we can after we have a few subcommittees coming up, but I'll get the most the earliest subcommittee time that I can, and we'll continue this discussion. So call for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I'm sorry, not to adjourn, but
Recess.
So, okay, thank you.